All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Jeremy Swisher. I was last year's family medicine class representative. I'm here to welcome you to our Sports Medicine Fellowship Council webinar. Tonight, we're doing our Family Medicine Fellow panel, and they're going to be sharing a lot of their advice and insights on preparing for sports medicine match. I think it's a great opportunity for our resident and student members here to learn from these fellows that just matched all throughout the country. Like I said, my name's Jeremy Swisher. I'll serve as the moderator. And last year, I served on the Sports Medicine Fellowship Council along with our other 9 fellow members that were selected by their committees. So we have a few of those here tonight that can talk to you about some of their positions as well. So I completed my family medicine residency at Wake Forest University out in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and then came over to Los Angeles to do my sports medicine fellowship at UCLA. Right now, I'm sports medicine faculty in the Division of Sports Medicine at UCLA and do some teaching with our sports medicine fellowship. So I'd like to honor our 7 current fellows here tonight for our family medicine panel. We'll have them introduce themselves one at a time, talk about their sports medicine fellowship as well as where they came from residency, and we'll do one fun fact. Can we go ahead and start with Patrick?
Sure. Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. My name is Patrick Matian. I'm the sports medicine fellow at Penn State here in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I actually did my family medicine residency in California. So I was chief resident back home. I went to Adventist Health in Tulare, so Central Valley. Big change coming from West Coast to East Coast. I know you guys might have done the opposite. But one fun fact, I really love cooking. I love food photography, so I'm hoping to get a little bit of time to do that during fellowship. But so far, I can see how it's about to start ramping up and get kind of busy. So we'll hopefully be able to have some time for that.
Absolutely. All right, Matthew Waldrop from Wake Forest, is that correct?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Swisher. My name's Matt. I did family med residency at Wake Forest out in North Carolina, and then came back home to University of Wisconsin-Madison for fellowship. Fun fact, I would say I'm one of the many owners of the Green Bay Packers.
Is it Cara? Could you go next?
I'm Cara. I did my residency at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri in family medicine, and I am now one of the sports medicine fellows at Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. Fun fact about me is I have 2 horses.
Impressive. Can we go Kimberly?
Okay, my audio just cut out, but I think you said me. I'm Kimberly. I am also was a family medicine resident at Wake Forest with Matt, and then Jeremy was our upper level, and then Kieran's here and Gina's here somewhere. So there's a little Wake Forest quorum. But I'm currently a fellow at UCLA. Fun fact, I wasn't prepared for this. I was homeschooled.
Needs more time for the next one. Can we go with Joe?
Hey, I'm Joe. I did my residency training in South Georgia at the Phoebe Putney Memorial Hospital in Albany, Georgia, and I'm currently at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. I guess fun fact about me, I played tennis throughout my whole life and played D2 tennis. So that's my spiel.
Very cool. Serena?
Hey everyone, I'm Serena. I did my family medicine residency at Innova Fairfax outside of DC, and I loved it there. And now I'm at University of Colorado for my sports medicine fellowship. And my fun fact, which I also wasn't prepared for, I at one point in my life was trying to be a forester, so I lived in the woods for 3 months and just chopped wood the whole summer.
And last but not least, Brendon?
Hey everyone, my name is Brendon Martin. I'm one of the UNC fellows. I did my family medicine residency at Baylor in Houston. And then my fun fact, similarly not prepared, but I like to both run and bake cookies. So I feel like that's like my nice balance. I'm like always baking and like try to run to burn that off. So it's like a nice healthy balance, I think. Happy to be here.
All right, thank you, everyone. So we'll start with just a few preset questions for each of the panelists here, and we'll open it up to some Q&A. If you guys want to put in some questions through the chat, I'll kind of help facilitate those throughout our session here. So our first question, open to our panelists here, is about fellowship preparation. So looking back at your own journey, what were the most impactful steps that you took during residency that you felt made yourself a really strong candidate as you matched into fellowship? And is there anything that you maybe would have done differently?
I guess maybe I can start same order that we went in. I think the biggest things that were helpful for me kind of in preparation for fellowship kind of matching was initially kind of doing rotations in sports medicine, seeing if that is even something that you like to do. Because we all hear about the field and we think, it sounds great, but you really do have to experience it to know if that is a lifestyle that you want to do. So kind of doing odd rotations. It doesn't even have to be audition rotations anywhere. It could be within your system. If you have a residency where there is a track, being able to do that is super beneficial. I think then also in conjunction with that is doing sideline coverage, going to high schools, going to local colleges. If you're lucky enough to go to a program that has D1 or even professional coverage, kind of getting that experience and seeing how that is, that's really good stuff on your applications and kind of helps you stand out. And then also, just making yourself stand out in comparison to your peers in residency, because things that make you a great primary care sports medicine doctor is being a good family medicine doctor. So, being whether it's in an administration, being a chief resident, or, being in some sort of committees, making yourself kind of look like you stand out. It gives you a lot to talk about on residency, on fellowship interviews. One thing that I really wish I probably looking back now had done a little bit differently was plan backwards. So for those med students out there, I think it's probably best to look at where you want to end up for fellowship, or where fellowships are, and then play backwards from there. Go to a residency that might have some training, have a track for you, or a specialty where you can kind of get some mentorship. I unfortunately did it the hard way. I went to a place that had none, so I had to make my own and drive a long ways for coverages. Probably in hindsight made me stick out a little bit more, because I did have to go that extra mile, but having a mentor that can help guide you is probably a little bit easier. So save yourself the hassle, just plan backwards a little accordingly.
I would say big things would be try to go the year that you are matching, or the calendar year that you're matching. Try to make it to AMSSM for sure. I feel like that's the most important year as far as networking, because that's the summer that you will be applying and the fall that you'll be interviewing. And then, it's never too early to start thinking where you want to apply, especially when you're a busy resident. So you could always start that Excel sheet that I feel like many of us made early on, as far as just researching online.
Kind of piggybacking on what Patrick said, I feel like the biggest thing for me in residency was just saying yes to opportunities that maybe were outside your comfort zone. But we had opportunities with actually Dr. Mueller here through different sporting events and things like that. And you really just got exposed to things that maybe weren't super comfortable, but really gave you a good experience in residency to see if you really were interested in sports and all that came with it.
I think similarly to Patrick as well, I came from a program that didn't have sports built into it. And so I kind of had to reach out within my city. I was in Houston, so it's kind of a larger city for sports. But I think through that, I was able to reach out and kind of find diverse experiences and do some kind of niche stuff that you wouldn't necessarily normally do if you had a track. So for those that maybe don't have that built into their program, that is an opportunity and could be flipped into a strength by being able to get more varied experiences for sure.
Yep. I think adding on to some of those details without being too redundant, once you obviously going to rotate through these sports medicine clinics, to find that mentor really early on, as soon as you figure out that you have an interest, and really try to pick their brain, get their thoughts, since they've been through that process before, and just try to lay out your plan as early as you can, because residency goes by really quickly, as we mentioned. So planning is key. And when you get involved with AMSSM, you've already got this email to do this, not necessarily being a big leadership position, but there are all sorts of opportunities with journal club and all sorts of things you can submit to. Just having something on your CV that says AMSSM shows commitment, I feel like is a big thing to add on to your application.
one thing I think people don't always think about is like the letters of recommendation part. And a lot of times people want you to have meaningful experiences with them in order to write a good letter. They might write you a letter if you don't, but they like to have things they can talk about. And so being mindful of that at the end of your intern year, beginning of your second year, and making opportunities, like saying yes to opportunities that are outside your comfort zone, coming in early, asking to work with them when you maybe have a late start or something else like that, looking for like walk-in clinics or urgent care, different things that you could still work with them so that they can get to know you a little better. Because that really shows that you're interested, but that helps them write you a better letter that's more meaningful. And then people will see that. I had people comment like, oh, so and so wrote you a great letter, or oh, it was so cool that they were able to talk about something that you did with them. And so I think that's really important to think about and not wait till the last minute, because people can write okay letters, but maybe not as meaningful as you had hoped.
I second all of that, and I think my advice is a little bit less tangible, but I think just like knowing that sports medicine is such a team sport, so you want to start being a team player as early as possible. Like you want to be that good colleague that helps out and takes that extra call when someone isn't able to, and is just a good co-resident and a good member of your residency program, because then people will, not only do you get learning experiences that way, but also like people will recognize that you are a team player, and that goes a long way into, you know, making a good impression on your faculty too, because then it's like you're not just doing things to make yourself look good on paper, but you are actually like helping people out, and I think that will really carry you.
Yeah, great points. Thanks everyone for contributing. Kind of transitioning into our next one is kind of once you're in your fellowship interviews, what types of questions or topics did you feel like came up the most often? How did you prepare to highlight some of your strengths? And if you had some gaps or weaknesses that you were concerned about, how did you approach those?
I can go first this time. I think everyone was interested in knowing our journeys into sports medicine, like why we wanted to do it. Um, so I think, you know, everyone in this Zoom is passionate about sports medicine. And if you really highlight that and kind of speak authentically, and highlight all the good reasons that brought you into sports medicine and kind of your journey, I think that's one of the most common ones I got.
I will say a question I got often, because you will each have to do a research project in your fellowship year, is like very specifically, what is your research interest? Sometimes, like some people have one, some people love research, some don't. That's fine. Just have some answer to something that you may be interested in researching, because that question will come up quite often.
I got asked a decent amount of times, like, what does your ideal future practice look like? And I think that's okay to answer, like, completely honestly, most of the time they're just trying to figure out how well your goals kind of align with what they offer. So like, I mean, I answered it pretty honestly. Like, I don't know exactly what I want my split to look like as far as family med and sports in the future, and hopefully finding that out as I do fellowship training. So I think that's a question that's more of a truly, how can we like satisfy what you are looking to do in your career?
One thing that I actually got a lot of was, how do you have any questions for us? They actually, there was a lot of downtime where, because fellowship interviews kind of weren't like your residency interviews, where they're not hounding you about technical things or, you know, pimping you or anything like that. It's pretty much like, are you a good fit for us? Are we a good fit for you? So kind of like Dr. Waldrop was saying, like, what does it look like in your future practice? Because a lot of places, they can be a little bit more rural. They could be, you know, more D1, more professional, and just seeing if you align up with them. So I think going back to what I said, they often ask, do you have any questions for them? And I think some questions that, you know, I always kept in the back of my head is, you know, what makes a good resident successful here, a fellow successful, you know, different options, like what do the people who come out of here, what do they look like in terms of their, you know, lifestyle, where are they going to, what things do they do? And then, you know, just what kind of faculty support do you have? You know, what's your, how many fellows do you guys have? And are you expanding, or, you know, what kind of, where in line am I when there's an injury? Am I fifth in line, or am I really really the first to kind of go in. So things that you want to kind of keep in the back of your head, because that also helps separate you from other applicants who are just kind of like, I got nothing for you. So having some good set questions for everywhere you go and kind of sorting things out.
I think one thing to be mindful of is they will ask you about anything on your application. And so I got sometimes asked about like random case studies I had done as med student. And so they're like, tell me about this case. It sounds really interesting. And I was like, oh no, what was the story? And so just being like mindful that they might ask you about those things. So kind of remembering what you wrote, reviewing what you wrote, knowing what you wrote, so that when they ask you, you can actually talk about it. Because they'll ask you about the experiences you wrote about or the research projects you put on there.
This one probably goes without being said, but just the whole question about why program X. Really know who you're applying to and why you're applying to them. They can definitely see through, if you're applying to a place just for a name instead of knowing the opportunities they have, the placements that their fellows went, the types of research the faculty are doing. So showing that you've done the research, I think, is a big key, at least to show them that you're interested.
And building off that, I think that even gives you the opportunity to like find shared interests and like find like strong reasons for why a program would fit for you or not. If you find that you have a shared interest with one of the faculty that's interviewing that day, like really highlight that and ask them like what got them into that space and like how you see yourself maybe following that footsteps or things that they felt were good experiences. Because at the end of the day, we're all colleagues and our faculty, we're all in the same exact space, right? And so if you find someone who shares your niche interests or has something that they're doing that you've always thought would be cool to try out and do as well, you have the opportunity to at least ask them about it, kind of get some understanding of how you could do something similar. And that just kind of sparks a great conversation too. That may lead to mentorship no matter where you go.
And just in line with interviews, could you guys talk a little bit about your experience, kind of picking places to interview at, and then when it came down to kind of virtual versus in-person interviews, kind of what your advice or experience was there?
In regards to virtual versus in-person interviews, I think obviously typically virtual is much easier to accommodate in a resident schedule, but I felt like my in-person interviews, I remembered the interview, I remembered the experience a lot better because you were physically there, you got a better sense for how far away things were, what things look like, how people interacted together compared to sitting in front of a computer screen. And so I do think by the end, the virtual one started running together, but the in-person one stuck out. So if I think what I did is kind of like divided my programs a little bit into tiers, and if it was in my top tier, like and they offered it in person, I made it work. And the same for like picking which ones to interview, like if it was one in my top tier, I tried to make that work, and if not, and it worked my schedule great, and if I had to choose, that's how I chose.
Yeah, I kind of went geographically for where I was kind of trying to apply. Funny enough, I really wanted to stay West Coast, and here I am in central Pennsylvania. So that really shows how far your your plans can take you sometimes. Wouldn't have it any other way though. So geographically for sure. I think like Dr. Conrad was saying, it's your in-person ones, they require a lot more. They require you to travel, and it kind of will put that onus on you of, do I really want to go to this place? So really thinking about, do I see myself here? Because it's a year of your life. And then, whatever it is after that as well. So I mean, they for sure stand out a lot more than your virtual ones. Sometimes the virtual ones don't even have the dinner before, and the night before the meet and greet with a resident, and so you just hop on for 15 minutes during your lunch break, do an interview, and you're done and moving on to the next one. So the in-person ones kind of mean a lot more, and I think it's kind of like a dual-sided relationship where they want you a little bit more because they're wanting you to come all the way out there, and you want them a little bit more. So I think those ones were a little bit better. Not all places are offering it, but it seems like things are moving to it now. So yeah, just make that Excel sheet, as Dr. Waldrop was saying.
And now that you guys have mentioned the fellowship, we're going on our second month here. Is there anything looking back that you may have valued differently when you're choosing your program?
I really love my program. I have no complaints about it. And it's really made me kind of consider how important it is to have a balance of training in the way that you value it to be. So I definitely wanted a good variety of experiences, and I wanted a strong like ultrasound experience, but also wanted not only good like clinic experience, but also good coverage just to in multiple levels. So my program has anywhere from high school to pro coverage and Olympic coverage also. So it's just a good variety of stuff, and you get to see how sports medicine physicians function at each of those levels, and you get to learn from some of the best minds in the field. So it's I mean, the balance is so individualized for everyone and your future goals. Like if you want to, if you know you want to end up in a community hospital and or clinic and just be really strong in ultrasound and get a lot of reps being able to do like procedures and stuff, like look for a program that really values ultrasound. And if you want to be a team physician in the future, I think some of that experience would be valuable to have during fellowship as well.
Yeah, kind of going off that too, I will say the people that you pick at your program is very important. You're going to spend a ton of time with your attendings. And so I know there's some interviews where I was like, this program is super cool, but maybe the vibe wasn't there as much with the faculty between us. And I think that picking a spot where you feel like you will be very supported, but can also learn a lot from the people that you're working with is huge and maybe more valuable than just picking a program based on other factors, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them, learning from them.
The things I started with on my like initial score sheet are not the things I ended up with, and I ended up actually having to go back and email programs I'd already interviewed at to re-ask questions, and so that I hadn't asked because I didn't think it was important when I was there originally. And so I think remembering like figuring out what you think is important, and then as you go along you might hear things or find things that change your perspective. And so I think those are important to like be willing to change your scoring, go back and send emails, ask questions. If you didn't get them, I'll ask the first time.
And this is a question from the chat, but could you guys talk about if you mastered a program that you didn't rotate at, and if so, how did you make yourself stand out as a candidate with those programs?
So I can probably start on that one. I definitely did not rotate all the way out here. That would have been a tough one to do. I think the biggest way to make yourself stand out is, you know, just as I said, make yourself a great resident, you know, make yourself a great family medicine resident, whatever that entails. You know, either getting on a bunch of research, getting on a bunch of, you know, conferences, being a leader in some capacity, and then your letters of recommendation for sure, because you want one at least from sports medicine, primary care sports med. So even if you're not rotating out of place, making sure wherever you did get your rotations or did do your your sports medicine kind of elective, to kind of make sure that they know you and they know what you're capable of. I think also just looking back, it's always a really good thing to have word of mouth, because I knew of this program because my program director had been a resident here and, you know, had been faculty here. So he kind of pushed me back this way. It's always good to listen to whoever is your mentor. Where did they go? How did they pursue it? And if you look up to them, kind of following along in their footsteps, maybe not the same program, but looking in the same kind of generalized direction for programs that have similar qualities to what you're looking for. So making yourself stand out, it's tough. But I think one of the doctors mentioned going to AMSSM and meeting people. That's such a big thing. When they put a face to the application, it really helps you stand out. So sending out those emails early, going out to the conferences, making connections, even coming to these webinars are super fantastic, because you learn a lot, you meet people, and these are great. So AMSSM is a great hub for all of us.
And for some of our earlier trainees, fellowship's a really exciting idea that's coming up for them. If you could just talk a little bit about maybe a fun day in the life of fellowship and how that might differ from coming straight out of residency. I saw Dr. Waldrop smile. He's got something on his mind.
Thanks for calling me out, Dr. Swisher. I would say, I mean, it varies based on the program, but for mine anyways, like a fun day example is like, honestly, today, like number one, you don't really have a patient panel. So like my in basket has been as clean as ever, with a lack of patient advice requests. So I will savor that while it is still here. But so like this morning, I was in like an ultrasound procedure clinic all morning with one of my attendings, and we did all various different procedures, including ones I'd never done before or even seen before, which was awesome and just a lot of fun to learn. And then I literally just walked across the hallway and did like a normal MSK sports medicine clinic in the afternoon and was home at a reasonable time. Didn't have any coverage tonight, so I got to join y'all. But then there'll be random nights too where there's like a women's college soccer game that I'll get to go cover and hang out with the athletic training staff and one of the attendings. So it's just a very different vibe from waking up at 5:30 to get to inpatient and round. So definitely light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I will echo that. The days are still long, but it's so much more fun. At least that's my, like, you are still working. Like, for instance, we'll start, I mean, usually like 8 a.m. We'll have a clinic. And then for us, we have our UCLA training room. So we'll start in clinic with one of the attendings doing injections and things like Dr. Waldrop talked about. And then head to UCLA clinic or training room, sorry, where I'll see a variety of the athletes there. And then we are covering, like in season right now is the LA Sparks. So you'll have a game in the evening, or like football's obviously in preseason. So we'll head out there on Saturday. So like your time that you're in sports medicine, especially during the fall, is immense, but it's so much more fun, at least from my perspective, than waking up at 5 being on inpatient. So it's like balancing, but also savoring that you're doing something that you are hopefully very passionate about.
Surprisingly, I found it a little more motivating after a long day of clinic to drive out to a Lakers game or a Sparks game than OB call overnight. It wasn't my favorite thing, so I think you've been working hard to get to where you want to go. So it's very rewarding. The year goes by really quickly, but there's a lot of cool and fun opportunities. Another one from the chat here. For those of you that didn't have sports medicine tracks or didn't have as much experience throughout residency, how did you learn how to do your physical exams? We know that's really important for sports medicine coming down to an accurate diagnosis. Was there anything particular resource-wise that you found helpful, or how could you guys speak to that?
So my program didn't have sports like I mentioned, but there was like an adjacent program that we through pediatrics that we kind of have some exposure to. So I just like begged my program to like let me do that rotation over and over and over again. And they were very kind enough to let me do that. And then via YouTube, I think it's like physio tutors or something like that. They're fantastic. I think they're like 14 years old, but they are stellar physical exam videos, and they walk you through everything and why they do it. And so those are both really helpful when I was an intern, just trying to get a sense of how to do these exams and how to like present the range of motion and like what am I really testing, and that all the tests are just truly a confluence, testing more than one thing at once. But it was really nice to at least start that process. And then I did that rotation in second year, and then I did it again in third year just to kind of keep brushing over it a few different times.
Yeah, I totally second that. I mean, the beauty of it is we are primary care, so our exams aren't terrible. You know, I mean, yeah, they're sometimes limited, but we should be pretty good at most of them. So I had some primary care providers who were athletic trainers in the past and just doing primary care now, so they kind of showed it. I didn't have a tract as I had mentioned, but physio tutors, man, that saved my life even, you know, here now. So that's good stuff. Create a log of places that you like. Netters is obviously great for, you know, good stuff. And then yeah, YouTube, chat GPT stuff now. Honestly, it's the new way of everything. So yeah.
Y'all ask questions too, and if you think they're dumb, like you'll hear like Stinchfield, like these random tests are named after these people that make no sense and do not correlate with the test at all. And so I remember asking one of my attendings, Dr. Nelson at Wake, who was sports and family, and I would just be like, I have no idea what this is. And like, just be so willing to just put yourself out there, ask questions, have them demonstrate with you. That's how it stuck best with me, was just being like, I feel stupid, but what even is this? And can you show me how to do it?
And you learn by doing. So after you find a good resource, practice it on as many people as you can, because like, remember how we all learn to listen to a murmur by listening to a bunch of normal hearts, and then finally we found an irregular one. So sometimes I'll have a patient who has like a very clear like knee problem, and you probably don't even have to do an exam for it, but then sometimes I'll still like walk through the full knee physical exam just to get practice doing it. And the more you do it, the faster you get, and then the more comfortable you will be. So yeah, like in your family medicine clinic, everyone's going to come to you with some sort of MSK complaint at some point, and just use that opportunity to practice.
I think one of the other things kind of brought up, like athletic trainers do physical exams, and so if you have an opportunity even to find a local high school and just ask if you can come in, especially kind of during the fall football season, and like, hey, I'd love to just watch and learn your exams. Like they do a lot of those exams, especially on those high school kids who often have less access, and so they are also a good resource for, that's right, all they do, and so they're a good resource for learning and practicing on too. Typically that's how they learned, and so they're willing to let you, like, oh, this is how you do Lockman's, or this is how you do McMurray, or whatever it might be.
For a lot of people going into sports medicine fellowship, they've got a big interest in sideline coverage. Are there any skills or resources or things that you found useful as you prepared to cover some of your first events and games starting off fellowship?
Definitely lean on your ATs. They will be your savior many times, and hopefully become a really close resource and good friend as well.
And along those lines, I think being open and like, if you don't understand the sport or you don't play that sport, sometimes there are rules you don't know about, like having to be like called out onto the field for soccer, or blood and injury times for wrestling. And so just talking to the athletic trainer, they know all those rules because they have to. If there's not an athletic trainer, the coaches will know those rules. And so finding an assistant coach or finding a player who maybe doesn't play, backup goalie, whatever it might be, and kind of asking those questions can be helpful. I think the other thing is to try to like kind of read the situation and make sure you're not like interrupting the head coach who's getting ready for the game, but finding maybe that manager or assistant coach who looks a little more open to having a conversation with you if you do have those questions.
And another question from the chat, in your experience, at what point in the interview cycle would you say if you're running low on invites to start reaching out to programs, maybe with some follow-up emails, to see if there's a good number of interviews that you want to make sure you go on?
I guess from my experience, like it varies so wildly when they send out interviews. And so it's a little hard to appreciate when to do that. One of my biggest pieces of advice is some people will post their interview dates, the actual date, or they will say like they are Wednesdays in October, or they are away football Friday, like home football Fridays, or whatever it might be. And so if you know that, or you know people who've like interviewed the previous year, ask them like, oh, was there a specific day that they interviewed or timeline? Because that might give you an idea if they've even sent out interviews yet. If the interviews are in September and it's already September, you haven't heard, that gives you a better idea than like, oh, all the interviews are October, November. Maybe that's why I haven't heard. Maybe give it a little time.
Yeah, I'd say like right now is probably a little early for, anything. I mean, our program I know hasn't even rolled out interviews yet. Dates are there, but nothing rolled out. I don't think there is ever a I shouldn't say there's ever like a too early time. It's not a perfect time. It's kind of like, hey, like I really am interested in this program. I haven't heard. I want to just let them know my intent and interest, and sending those kind of emails out or it's just shows your interest. So it can never hurt as long as you're not pushy or saying anything egregious in your email. I think it should be fine. But yeah, I can't, I don't think there's a perfect time to do it. There's not like residency match where it's, hey, we're coming up to like January. You haven't heard from us. You're probably not getting an interview. So I don't know about those ones here.
Yeah, shifting gears a little bit, could you guys talk a little bit about your research journey in sports medicine? Is there something that you found an interest in early, or how did you kind of develop that skill? And now that you're going into fellowship and a lot of us want to get ready for the AMSSM National Conference, what types of tips do you have for our upcoming trainees?
Sorry, I'll jump in on this one quickly. So I always recommend med students and residents, low-hanging fruit, go low-hanging fruit. Case reports are your best friend, get a couple of those under your belt early on. Start seeing kind of what research is about, what scholarship is all about, submit to AMSSM, ACSM, like all your sports conferences, and then just submit, even to your local family medicine conferences in your state or nationally as well. Try to get some posters in. And then, the next low-hanging fruit is QIs. Those are great, especially in your clinic, especially rural clinics or any clinics that don't have a lot of sports. There's probably a huge void in kind of regulations and things. I mean, I did concussion protocol because no one in our clinic had ever even understood what return to play was. So kind of looking for the gaps in your community, looking for the gaps in your residency, what people in your residency and other aspects have done, and just kind of piggybacking off of that. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You just kind of have to, just adjust as you go. But as I said, start easy, build your way up, and start early. You don't want to be the third year who's like, I want to be a third-year fellow, a resident who is now like, I want to be a sports medicine fellow. You can't start then. You can always be a third year who says, I don't want to do sports. I've done it all. I don't want to be a sports medicine doctor anymore. But I'd say start early, med school, first year residency. Make it a priority to have in the back of your head to always be looking out for interesting cases when they're in a rotation.
Yeah, research is difficult in residency. At this point, you're probably a year or two in. There's so little time to actually do a lot of actual bench work. For me, I mean, I wasn't affiliated with like an academic, residency program. So just finding a niche interest in writing a review article, something simple as that, and that can sort of build the foundation on really what your interest could be going into fellowship in terms of what you kind of get the ball rolling once you start talking with your advisors and your program directors from that standpoint. And it gets you thinking critically about literature, about kind of learning more about a certain aspect of the field. So it kind of allows you to explore your interests.
One other thing too is definitely find a mentor too, or someone like an attending who's working on a project, even if it's not necessarily something that is in your specific area of interest. If it's somewhat related to sports medicine or musculoskeletal care, it can be helpful just to kind of get your feet wet with some research. And then if you have like a co-resident who is also interested in sports and also interested in research, residency is busy, and kind of breaking up some of the workload can be super, super helpful as far as like time and load management.
Also, as far as case studies go, obviously in residency, you're getting maybe a couple MSK cases, but if you are at a place that has a sports program, your faculty in sports are getting a ton of exposure to all these different cases. So just letting them know early, like, hey, I'm looking for an interesting case. If there is one you have, I would love to be involved in that care. Honestly, the coolest case I had was a non-sports family medicine attending that I worked with. And I was like, I'm looking for a case, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, this patient's coming in. It ended up being very, very cool. And she was totally not sports related. So I think just kind of keeping your ear to the ground and then like making it known. Don't be annoying, but make it known like, hey, I'm interested in writing an interesting case is the move as far as presenting AMSSM.
And I think even just adding on to that, if any of your faculty that are primary care based that are either sports or not sports don't have anything, if you have a local orthopedic sports medicines, like surgical side, they do see some non-op stuff at times that are still interesting and still able to be presented. And so one of my cases actually came from our ortho department. that was still non-operative. And so that's another option to like kind of sniff out too. Because of course their residents and fellows don't present at AMSSM. And so those cases kind of just lay there, but they're still interesting. So that's an option too.
I had a few questions about away rotations. What were your experience? If you did do an away rotation, was it helpful? Was it not helpful? Were there any expectations that you found faculty had while you were there?
I think away rotations can be really helpful, especially maybe if they don't offer in-person interviews. You don't always know that, but it's another way to go and see a place. I used it kind of as like a place I thought would be really high in my list, and I wanted to go and see what it would look like. And I think it gave me a better feel for like working with the faculty there and kind of what that would look like. I do think expectations are different depending where you go, and so asking that like on the first day, the one place I went, they expect all like visiting or all residents who rotate with them, whether they're like from their program or not, to do like presentation. And they tell you the day they expect you to come to journal club, they expect these things. And so they gave me a list right up front of like, here's the things we expect you to do and be a part of. And that way, like, it wasn't 3 days from when I needed to give the presentation and I had to write it or do it. It was like I had a week and a half before I needed to give it. And so I think just asking those things, and then even asking for feedback, kind of like asking whether it's the program director or just another faculty member, kind of like halfway through like that first Friday, if you start on Monday, and just kind of asking like, hey, just curious if there's anything that you'd like to see more, like to see me do differently, or any suggestions you have, and just see what they have to say.
I would say too, just, I mean, same to go with anything, but just work hard and be yourself. Because I mean, this is as much an opportunity for you to kind of feel out that program as for them to kind of get to know you as well. So it's kind of a two-way interview. And sorry, my dog is going crazy in the background. But I lost my train of thought. Yeah, just be yourself.
Just like
Yes.
be excited, teachable, and like willing to like learn from them. Because I think at the end of the day, like while you are filling out the program, they're filling you out too. Like this is like a prime opportunity to just learn good sports medicine from like a different location. And like for me, like I did two-way rotations, and one of them ended up being where I matched. And I think that was very helpful because I was able to go and see the place and actually try to get an understanding of like, is this somewhere that I could see myself getting training? Like, do I fit in well with the people here? Like this is kind of like education style that I like and all those supportive things. But regardless of like whatever the case may be, at the end of the day, at least you get to like learn a lot of good sports medicine from like a department that's focused on that. So yeah, but just be yourself, like Dr. Waldrop said, just have a nice time. It's a great opportunity.
I didn't get to do an away rotation because my program didn't allow me to do any. But it's not the end of the world if you can't. I think what I've noticed just as a fellow now and watching the away rotators come through our program, things I've noticed that I've been really impressed with as far as what I've seen from the people who've come and like the residents who've come and rotated with us is the ones I really like, they're just, you can tell they just like really want to learn, and not in like an aggressive or annoying way where they try to like take procedures from the fellows or like take or like ask to do things that are like way outside of the scope, but they're eager to learn, as in they're like, even if there's a patient that they're not signed up to see, they've maybe already reviewed the chart. I had one resident recently that like prepped all the charts for a clinic morning, even though they obviously wouldn't see every single patient. They just like prepped all the charts. And then every single one that they weren't going to see, they still like came along with me and the attending just so that they could learn more. And that is, and they did it in a nice and subtle way, and it didn't feel intrusive. And I was really impressed.
When you were interviewing now almost a year out here for fellowship, were there any green flags looking back of things that really stood out to you of what a good, strong sports medicine fellowship looks like?
I think I paid a lot of attention. I did have the benefit of doing it away at the program I matched at, but was really seeing how the people interacted with each other, the attendings with each other, and then the fellow attending connection. Like, where are you and how do they treat you? Are you supposed to be quiet in a corner, or are you respected as a member of the team? And I think you'll get a sense of that with different teams in terms of, like, you will get told, like, you will not touch this athlete, like, on interviews, and they'll be very upfront, and that's great. And then other programs are like, no, we want you to learn by putting your hands on, And so I think that is something just to be aware of, is that you will see a lot of different interactions between the attendings, which is awesome. And then the attending fellows, I paid a lot of attention to that and asked the fellows a lot of questions because they'll tend to be more honest with you about what it's actually like to be a fellow there.
Yeah, I give the same advice I give to med students applying to residency. Look at the residents. If they're happy, that kind of is a good telltale sign. If you'll see it on their faces, just like Dr. Burbank said, the fellow will tell all, and then for sure, I think the vibe check is the huge thing. Seeing how the faculty is with each other. I actually, for Penn State, we allow the resident to come to didactics the morning of the interview because that's when we have them, and just seeing how the lecture goes, how the residents, the fellows treated, and kind of how they interact with each other. I think it's you are part of the team, so you want to be integrated pretty well into it. So it's all about kind of how comfortable are they? What are you looking for? And then as they said, where do you fall in the pecking order in terms of being in line to help with athletic, decisions? Are you going to be fifth in line behind the ortho fellow and, this and that? So seeing what kind of coverage you get, what does it look like, and, what fits your end goal, all, at the end of the day.
I think one of the other things that was like kind of green versus red flag for me is like learning style or teaching style, and how like, is everything handed to you from like, this is your schedule, this is how it's going to be? Is there time for you to pick and choose like what you're going to do on these half days? Is there research time? When do you go to do your athletic training room clinics? Like, do you plan your whole schedule, or do they plan it all for you? Because I think it's different for different people, and so what fits best with the way you learn and like things. And because you're going to be there for a whole year, if it's not really the way you like things, maybe that's not a good way for you to go about it. But if it's like, oh, I like my program, I have 2 half days a week where I get to choose what I do, but I have to schedule those things. But I like that because that means every week is different for me, and so I reach out to people and do those things. But other people might not like that, and they might like a program that is like, it might change every month or every block or a quarter, but like, it's handed to you, which is okay too. It's just based on how you like things.
And a few questions kind of talk about this in the chat, but for those medical students that are looking to go into family medicine residency, they're also really interested in sports medicine fellowship. How do you balance being a really strong family medicine resident versus your interest in sports medicine when you want to do that as your career?
One of the pieces of advice I was given is like, especially intern year, really focus on like family medicine. So learn how to be a family medicine resident. You are an intern. Typically, there's lots of new things, not even related to medicine, but just related to not being in school anymore and having a job and all these different things. And so focus on those things. If you're getting a good handle on things, kind of 6-7 months in, that's kind of when you start looking for opportunities leading into your second year. But a lot, like, it's really important to be a good family medicine resident to really understand that. That's why we do primary care sports medicine. And so that was the advice I was given, is like, yes, you can do high school coverage, and yes, you can do some of these things, but do just a little to start out with and really focus your intern year on like learning all the family medicine stuff and then adding on from there.
I completely second Dr. Conrad. It was drilled into my head ad nauseum. A good sports medicine, primary care sports medicine doctor is a good family medicine doctor. You can't have one without the other. So focus for sure. family medicine comes first, especially in your intern year, second year, because once you get into specialty, you're specializing, and you kind of leave everything else at the door when the patient comes in. So you want to have a good, solid kind of foreground to be able to kind of attack your patients a little bit better. Yeah, and I would definitely make family medicine the priority through your entire residency. You will get tons of sports when you get to sports medicine fellowship. It is drinking from a fire hose. So you will get lots and lots of this. So focus on your family medicine.
Spoiler alert, your collegiate athletic training room is literally primary care. At our program, we have ortho fellows too. And so you'll get your ortho MSK stuff in clinics and things like that. But when there's an ortho team too, you are the primary care doctor and your athletes are coming in for primary care complaints. And so just know that's what your role is. And so try to be as confident and competent as you can in your primary specialty.
I would echo that too for a lot of the people that have interest in professional sports. That's what your role is going to be, especially just like collegiate, like Dr. Burbank just mentioned. But with like the Dodgers and the Lakers, they have all their orthopedic surgeons. And so the thing that you can offer is, like they said, being a great primary care doctor and a great primary care sports medicine doctor. So the better you can be with those skills, the more you have to offer all those professional teams that you might be excited about.
Also remember that we are the coolest specialty, and there's so much that you can do in family medicine, and there's so much need for primary care doctors in this country. And we all decide to go into this field and this specialty to serve that need. So there's just so much you can do. And if you like put your full effort and your full heart into being a great family medicine doctor, like it's going to carry you really far.
And we're running a little bit low on time here, but just kind of wrapping up with, is there a number of programs that you thought were useful to apply to, or how did you come to the number that you were interested in sending out your applications?
I do think this depends a little bit on like the strength of your application, which is sometimes hard to appreciate. Kind of depends on like contacts you have, and are you at a program that has a fellowship already that you're applying to, or have you had no contacts at all? Do you have something on your like application that you have to explain to some extent? Have you done research projects? Have you gone to AMSSM? And so it is a little variable. I think one thing to be mindful of, just like in residency, is like I think it's after 20 you start paying for additional things. So I kind of use that as like how many additional do I want to apply for, but I also use it as geographic, like just because it sounds cool, like am I willing to go there? Am I willing? What is the distance? What is that? And so if you narrow it somewhat by geographics and then decide what is this a program I would be happy at based on what the internet says or what I've heard, I think that's a good way to narrow it down. But I don't know that I can give like a specific. I've heard 20 to 30 is like what people recommend. I don't know if people have heard it differently. I think in other specialties outside of family medicine, that's the number is actually people apply to a lot more. But the number I've heard in family medicine is like somewhere around 20, 25.
I think if you do have the residents that have gone before you, and we're in my program, we're lucky enough to have several additions or like multiple levels of those that have gone before you, just asking, hey, how many did you apply to? How many do you feel comfortable with? And then kind of gauging your experiences with someone that's done it before you in a similar program. I know that does not apply to everyone. But if you have that, that's a really good gauge for what you should or could do.
And we'll just follow that up. Oh, I was going to say, just following it up and then you can finish, Dr. Waldrop, but just how many interviews you thought would be good to go to? How did you decide on what you wanted to accept versus not?
I think that how many to go to and how many to accept is also a really hard question because some of it is dependent on what your residency will allow you to do and how they deal with these interviews. I've heard lots of different things from different people that I've talked to about how they go about this, and so I think that can be like if you're only given a small amount of time, that's how you decide, and then you pick your top programs and hope for the best. I think you start out like I started out by taking kind of all of them because people will go back and get like you might get offers later, or people will go back in that were waitlisted and rescheduled because it's all like done. Most of them are all done on an online platform, and so kind of starting out taking most of the offers, and as you go along, if you realize that some of the ones you were more interested are either similar time periods or you needed to cut down, that's kind of how I went about deciding then to like give up one or like waitlist for one that I wasn't like they didn't have a date for me yet, but trying to hope to get a date and kind of going about it that way.
I know this is such a hard question because for each person it's different, like I could, we could tell you to apply to 10 programs or 50 programs. And then we could say, man, I got 10 interviews, I got 5 interviews, I got 1 interview. I think the one thing to take away from this is that it only takes one, it just takes one. So always stay confident, stay positive about whatever it is that you're getting. Know if it's meant to be, it'll be. But don't get too bogged down in the numbers and comparing yourself to especially any colleague residents or anything like that. It's like the really bad way to get down a bad track. So stay vigilant, stay positive. It'll work out what's meant to be.
I agree. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out tonight. Just want to thank our fellow panel for sharing all their insights and advice for everybody here. Before we conclude, just want to encourage you, our next webinar is going to be Thursday, August 21st at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's going to be for the Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation fellow panel.
I have
So,
one more.
Thank you
one more
again
quick.
for coming.
Oh, I was going to say I have one more quick piece of unsolicited advice. Get to know the people you interview with next year because you will become friends with them. I have memories of riding in a car with Brendon and Serena jamming out to some Rihanna in our program director's car. So like these are the people you will see them over and over again at AMSSM, at the Fellows Conference, and for years and years and years. So they'll be really great friends and just get to know them because even though it's stressful interviewing, it's cool to have other people going along the same journey with you.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That was a fun day.
So it was really fun, honestly. Blasting Akon at 7 a.m. Great.
Alrighty, everyone. You guys have a good night.
Bye, y'all.